I'm going to show you how to set yourself up for the next airdrop on the Optimism blockchain. Optimism is one of the fastest growing Ethereum layer 2 scaling solutions, and their first airdrop was already worth 5 figures for some people. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. Nothing I say in this video is financial advice, and now let's get into it. First, a little more background on what exactly is Optimism and why should you care about it. Optimism is an Ethereum layer 2 scaling solution, and basically what that means is that it functions very similar to Ethereum from your perspective as a user. You use Ethereum to pay for transactions. You can run many of the same applications that are on Ethereum, also on Optimism, and many of them have already moved to Optimism, and it inherits a lot of the security of Ethereum. However, unlike Ethereum, it's much faster and the transaction fees are much lower. So a scaling solution, like the name implies. And Optimism uses something called optimistic rollups, hence the name Optimism. It's actually, in fact, very similar to Arbitrum, if you're familiar with that. And you could think of it sort of as the main competitor to Arbitrum right now. And it's been getting a decent amount of traction recently. So if you look at the daily transactions on Optimism and just look at this chart, tough to ask for a better looking exponential increase here, where we've gone from around 30,000 transactions earlier this year when we were in pretty much a bull market, to now we're getting 10 times that, 400,000, 300,000 transactions every day in the heat of one of the worst bear markets that crypto has had in years. And on top of that, some of the top Ethereum DeFi applications have already moved over to Optimism. The most notable of these is Synthetics. Synthetics is one of the OG DeFi products. Basically, it allows you to create synthetic assets, either for real world assets like currencies and stocks, or for crypto assets like BTC and ETH. And they're using Optimism as their main scaling platform. So a large portion of Synthetics liquidity has moved to Optimism at this point. You can stake SNX on Optimism. They are really going all in on the Optimism network. But a lot of the other older DeFi projects have also deployed on Optimism. Aave, for example, one of the largest money markets has, Curve has, Uniswap has as well. So all these OG DeFi products are deploying on Optimism, and they're deploying on other networks as well. But the fact that they're going on Optimism shows some level of trust and bullishness on the network. That's all great, but how can you benefit? Well, Optimism already did one airdrop earlier this year. And in fact, you can see that airdrop if you look at the daily transaction chart, because it's this huge spike at the start of June. And for many people, that airdrop was worth 4, even 5 figures. So it was extremely valuable. But let's look at the Optimism tokenomics. They have 19% total allocated for airdrops out of their tokens, but only 5% of that 19%, so just over 1/4, was used for airdrop number 1. The other 14% is reserved for future airdrops. So that pretty much confirms that Optimism will be doing airdrops in the future. And ask yourself, from Optimism's perspective, who would they want to airdrop to? People who are actively using the network. So today I'm going to show you some ways that you can use the network to hopefully qualify for those future airdrops. And luckily, Optimism made it very easy to get an idea for which types of on-chain tasks they're looking for people to do. And that's because they launched something called Optimism Quests. Basically, these are 18 assignments that you do on-chain, then you have to do some other things as well. And in exchange, you get NFTs for completing them. So these NFTs alone might be a criteria for a future airdrop. But even if they're not, if you look at what these tasks are, they're all the things that you would want to be doing to qualify for an airdrop anyways. You have to bridge to Optimism. You have to swap tokens on Optimism. You have to provide liquidity across a whole host of DeFi protocols. You have to make trades using various options and futures exchanges on Optimism. So basically, you are actively using Optimism anyways. So I think the best way to set yourself up for this airdrop is just to do all of the tasks for these Optimism quests. And worst case scenario, you learn about DeFi and you get some cool NFTs. So let's take a look at just a few of these tasks that you might be doing. First of them is you have to bridge to Optimism through Stargate. As you might recall, Stargate is the omnichain cross-chain swapping DEX built by Layer 0. And I have another video, by the way, on how to qualify for a potential Layer 0 airdrop that's linked in the description. But the first thing you have to do for Optimism is you have to bridge to Optimism using Stargate. So you do that, you go to stargate.finance, and then you have to take a quick quiz on Stargate Finance. You have to answer what it is, as well as another question. And then once you do that, with bridging 100 USDC, testing the knowledge, you get a nice NFT here on this website. And by the way, this website I'll link in the description as well. Some other tasks that you have to do are, for example, providing liquidity. So you can provide liquidity on Velodrome, which is the largest DEX on Optimism right now. It's an Optimism native DEX, even though Uniswap and Curve are also on Optimism. And then you have to do some various trading on here. So there's some trading platforms built in Optimism. For example, you have Lira, that's Lira.finance, which lets you trade crypto options on Optimism. And then you have Quenta, which is a platform for trading synthetic perpetuals that's built on top of synthetics. So again, it's just a cool way to become knowledgeable about the ecosystem and try out a lot of DeFi things that you would probably want to do anyways if you were trying to learn about this chain. Unfortunately, I will say that a lot of these things require you to do things in increments of $100 or so. So if you're working with a very small budget, it might be tough to get these NFTs. However, if one thing to consider is that you can reuse the same $100 for a lot of these different protocols, right? You don't necessarily have to provide liquidity and then keep it in there. You just have to provide liquidity, get your NFT, and then you can redeploy that capital elsewhere. And I honestly think it's as simple as that. Get those 18 Optimism Quest NFTs and you should be in very good shape for potential Optimism future airdrops. And worst case scenario, you use some cool new DeFi protocols. If you want more info on airdrops, DeFi, and crypto, be sure to like this video and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.